Okay, today I'm going to go after chapter 10 on biological psychology by James W. Calat. We'll do all of the basics here. Sexual reproduction between two individuals increases variation in the gene pool. The benefits of variation in the gene pool of a species enables quick evolutionary adaptations to create changes in the environment. This corrects genetic errors and disadvantage mutations. Sex and hormones. Prenatal sexual differentiations begin with the chromosomes. Female mammals have 2 X chromosomes and a male has an X and Y. During an early stage in prenatal development, both male and female have a set of Müllerian ducts and a set of Wolffian ducts, as well as undifferentiated gonads. Wolffian and Müllerian ducts. Wolffian ducts and the precursors to other male reproductive organs develop into the vas deferens and seminal vesicles. Müllerian ducts are precursors to the female's oviducts, uterus, and upper vagina. There's an image of the female genitals, vagina, urethra, inner here. Okay. Now there's the SRY gene. The male Y chromosome includes the SRY gene. Causes the primitive gonads to develop into testes. The sperm-producing organs developing testes produce androgens. These are important. You can look these up separately. Androgens increase testes growth and produce Müllerian inhibiting hormone MIH. Females do not have the SRY gene, and their gonads develop into ovaries, the egg-producing organs. Hormones in male and females' testes produce more androgens than female estrogens. These are important hormones that differ our functions. Androgens and estrogens are steroid hormones. Steroid hormones contain 4 carbon rings, okay? 1 binding to the membrane receptors like neurotransmitters, 2 entering cells and activating certain types of proteins in the cytoplasm, and 3 binding to chromosomes where they activate or inactivate certain genes. Steroid hormones, continued. Here's the backbone to all steroid hormones. Here's the routes of actions for steroid hormones. You have your blood capillaries on the outside here. The hormone then binds to the membrane. And then the hormone activates a protein in the cytoplasm. Then there's a nucleus here, nuclei. Then the receptor modules, hormones activates or inactivates certain genes. So it's how you could have some genes dominated more male hormones or more female hormones. Androgens and estrogens, categories of chemicals, not chemicals themselves. The androgens are a group of primary male hormones. Testosterone is the most widely known, and estradiol is the most common estrogen. We male and female have both, but some people can have more estrogen, which will make you susceptible to a different personality. Same with female. Progesterone prepares the uterus for the implantation of a fertilized ovum. Promotes the maintenance of pregnancy. Genes and sex differences. Hormones do not account for all the biological differences between males and females. At least 3 genes on the Y chromosome are activated in specific brain areas. 3 on the Y chromosome and 1 gene on the X chromosome is only active in the female brain. So there is difference in biology. Organizing effects of sex hormones. occur at sensitive periods of development before birth and at puberty in humans. Determine whether the brain and body will develop male or female characteristics. So there obviously can be differences. Activating effects of sex hormones occurs at any time of life and temporarily activates a particular response. Example, pregnancy and menstruation. Organizing effects of sex hormones. Distinctions between the activating and organizing effects of hormones is not absolute. Hormones early in life can exert temporary effects during puberty. Hormones can also produce or induce long-lasting structural changes. Sexual differentiation depends mostly on the level of testosterone during a sensitive period. The pre-stages. The human sensitivity period of genital formation occurs during the first trimester of pregnancy. So here's the development of the human genitals. It's really interesting, actually. There you go. Organizing effects of sex hormones and androgens. Female rats exposed to testosterone during sensitive periods become partly masculinized in anatomy and behavior. Clitoris slowly grows larger than normal. Sexual behavior becomes masculinized. If a female rat lacks androgen receptors or is castrated, it develops female-like anatomy and behavior as well. Organizing effects of sex hormones. Estradiol and other estrogens do not modify male anatomy. They do modify various internal structures, including the prostate gland. The absence of sex hormones generally lead to a female-looking external genitalia. Females lacking estradiol during early life do not develop normal sexual behavior. Sex differences in the hypothalamus, okay? Sex hormones early in life influence development in the hypothalamus, amygdala, and other brain areas. Produce anatomical and physiological differences. Sexually dimorphic nucleus is an area in the anterior hypothalamus. It is larger in males. So that's something. Anterior hypothalamus, and it is larger in men. And it contributes to the control of sexual behavior. Maybe that's why we're more impulsive. Who knows? Sex differences in the hypothalamus on hormone release. Parts of the female hypothalamus generate a cyclic pattern of hormone release. During early development in rodents, testosterone is converted within neurons to estradiol. Chemically similar to one another. Sex differences in the hypothalamus is the alpha fetoprotein is found in the blood during early sensitive periods. It binds to estradiol and prevents it from entering developing cells. Testosterone does not bind to alpha fetoprotein and freely enters the cell. There are sex differences in childhood. This is something to really look at. Boys and girls. Typically, many boys play with cars, trains, balls, and guns and play roughly. So this is the boys are attracted to objects. And girls are more interested in dolls, tea sets, and play cooperatively. So they're definitely development more on the language and more of like communications. And I mean, this is why you see them in the humanities courses. A lot of females, men like objects for the most part. Partially due to socialization, but also due to generalized preferences of each sex. Baby monkeys also show the same exact preferences, but to a lesser extent. So, this isn't in color, so it's hard for you to really understand it to some point. But, I mean, you see the shades. Okay. Sex differences in childhood behavior, or prenatal hormones. Girls born to women with high testosterone levels while pregnant show a slightly elevated preference for typical boys' toys. Boys born to women with high phthalate found in perfumes, food packaging levels while pregnant showed more interest in typical girls' toys. So, watching out with chemicals, hormones, things that are going to affect the birth of a child. Activating effects of sex hormones. At any time in life, sex hormones exert activating effects to temporarily modify behavior. Behavior can also influence hormone secretion. Oxytocin, important for reproductive behavior, stimulates uterine contractions during delivery and mammary glands in releasing milk. Male sexual arousal. Testosterone increases touch sensitivity in the penis. Sex hormones bind to receptors in the hypothalamus, including the ventromedial nucleus, the medial preoptic area, which is MPOA, and the anterior hypothalamus. Testosterone triggers the release of dopamine by the MPOA and other areas. So hypothalamus receptors, sex hormones bind to the ventromedial nucleus, medial preoptic area, and the anterior hypothalamus. So testosterone has an interesting play when it comes to sex organs. Males' effects of neurotransmitter. Dopamine stimulation of D1 and D5 receptors is associated with sexual arousal. Facilitates erection of the penis and sexual reproductive postures in females. Higher concentrations of dopamine stimulates D2 receptors and lead to orgasm. Neurotransmitter serotonin decreases sexual activity by blocking dopamine release. So, surprisingly, serotonin decreases sexual activity. Male's testosterone level. Testosterone levels correlate positively with sexual arousal and a drive to seek sexual partners. Married men or those in a committed relationship generally have lower testosterone levels. High testosterone levels result in greater than average desire to seek additional sexual partners even in a committed relationship. So this is the problem with younger men. You do kind of start to look around a lot, especially early 20s. And after childbirth, it's common for men to be lower on testosterone. Male sexual interest. Researchers on testosterone levels and sexual interest show direct correlation. Castration generally decreases sexual interest and activity. Low testosterone is not the typical reason for an impotence. Usually causes an impaired blood circulation. Male sex offenders. Testosterone reduction has been tied as a means of controlling sex offenders. Sex offenders may discontinue the medication negative side effects such as diabetes, depression, and weight gain. Females, the menstrual cycle. In women, hypothalamus and pituitary interact with the ovaries. Hypothalamus, pituitary, ovaries. The menstrual cycle, periodically variations in hormones and fertility over the course of about 28 days. Females, after the end of a menstrual period, anterior pituitary releases follicle-stimulating hormone, FSH. FSH promotes growth of follicle and end ovary. Follicle nurtures the ovum and produces estrogen. Towards the middle of the menstrual cycle, the follicle builds up receptors to FSH. As a result, the follicle produces increasing amounts of estradiol. Here we go. Here's the numbers here. There's the estradiol as it goes through. There's your progesterone. Obviously, there's going to be fluctuations here to help with the possibility of childbirth here. Okay, female FSH and LH. Increased estradiol causes the anterior pituitary to increase the release of FSH and luteinizing hormone, LH. FSH and LH cause the follicle to release an OVUM. The remnants of the follicle releases the hormone progesterone, prepares the uterus for implantation of a fertilized ovum, and inhibits the further release of LH. Here is the interactions of the pituitary and the ovary. First, the ovary, the FSH goes to the ovary. Then FSH comes in, estradiol exits the ovary, and then the follicle is also released. This is the follicular phase. And then the estradiol is then released. FSH and LH released back into the ovary. OVUM is released. Follicle is released. Estradiol and progesterone is released from the ovary. OVUM becomes fertilized or is discarded. And the corpus luteum